Against a backdrop of criticism that the world is moving far too slow to address climate change, the Paris summit was hailed as the venue where leaders would finally realize specific actions and specific dates. So what exactly did they achieve? Well, one of the highlights was a move to provide quicker access to emergency funds. A previous commitment from richer nations to secure $100 billion in the so-called special drawing rights was back on the table. And this time, the IMF announced that richer nations would reallocate a portion of their own SDRs to benefit poorer nations with greater need for emergency funding. France was the frontrunner, giving away 40% of its SDRs. The IMF also revealed a Resilience and Sustainability Trust, a tool that will enable developing nations to fund their green projects. It exceeded its $35 billion funding goal, reaching $41 billion. Now, the summit was also a backdrop for some major announcements, such as Zambia reaching a long-awaited agreement in principle to restructure $6.3 billion of debt with its bilateral lenders, including China. Senegal also secured $2.7 billion to help grow its renewable capacity to 40% of its energy mix by 2030. The World Bank also announced an investment lab that will look to increase private sector funding in emerging markets for renewables and energy infrastructure. And those at the summit said there was an abundance of new and creative ideas to manage the financial repercussions of climate change, such as so-called debt repayment pause clauses to break out of the climate debt trap. President Macron raised the prospect of international taxes to help generate the money needed to address global problems. A worldwide tax could be imposed on shipping, aviation, or even financial transactions. Also, we saw most countries agree that multilateral development banks must be reformed, and they set out to fulfill a timetable to get it done. The negotiations resulted in an 8-page summary, which some say scored some notable wins that should tee up a greater action before climate talks later this year. But critics of the event complain that any new funding pledges were loans or temporary debt relief instead of grants. Nevertheless, all eyes now turn to more traditional events expected later in the year. Uche Okoronkwo, CGTN, African.